I found this one a while back. It's not in the best shape. It's got a few dings in the lip, but all in all, it's a great bottle. I've seen them complete with stopper, and they're a really great find. We're going to learn today that they were kind of like Amazon is to us today. So let's get going on this episode of Antique Bottle Stories. Our story begins with a guy named John Larkin. He was born in 1845 in New York. His dad, Levi, was born in England, and here's a passenger list showing that he came over to New York by himself at age 17 in 1834. This 1850 census shows the family, Levi and his wife, and their 6 kids. Our John is a middle child. This account in the paper says that there were actually 7 children total. This says that Levi was an ornamental iron worker. Tragically, Levi dies at age 36, leaving Mary alone with 7 small children at age 34. Our John was only maybe 6 or 7 years old when his dad dies. This type of event ends up one of 2 ways. Either Mary gets remarried pretty quickly to help provide for her family, or the kids have to grow up too quick and get jobs at a young age to provide for the family. In this story, it's the latter. I found Mary in the next census 10 years later, not remarried, and she has 3 of her children living with her. One of her older daughters is married with a new baby, and they live there, so at least the son-in-law is bringing income into the household. And one of the children, Harriet, she died around the same time as her dad died. Harriet was only 3. That had to have been a really tough time for the family. So our John is listed here as 14 years old now, and it shows here that the following year that John is making picture frames. That's probably what his dad was doing, since his dad was an ornamental iron maker. This article says that John was forced to go to work at age 12 to support his mom. It says he worked as a messenger boy for Western Union and then became a clerk in a millinery store. And when he was 16, he started working for a guy named Justin Weller at a soap company in Chicago. It was only 1 year later that Weller made John Larkin a partner in his business. A few years later, John married Frances Hubbard when he was 29. A year later, John sold off his interest in the business, and then he moved back to Buffalo, where he decided to start his own business. This article continues the story, saying that in 1875, at age 30, John Larkin founded the institution at 198 Chicago Street, which brings me to this corner. It continues to say that Larkin formed a business partnership with his brother-in-law, Elbert Hubbard. In 1875, this article speaks of a medal given to a handful of people who were instrumental in helping 32 people after the sinking of a ship in 1872. There were 10 medals made, each worth 140 bullion gold, which I've never heard that term bullion before. I started to look around the internet, and I found a few times that the term was mentioned, but I couldn't find a clear definition of what that actually means. Anyways, John Larkin was one of those people receiving this medal, along with 2 other Larkin boys. I didn't look into what relation they were to him. So, in the 1876 directory, we are established here making soaps. Elbert Hubbard isn't found in here, nor is he in the next directory, so I guess the brother-in-law doesn't join right at the very beginning. His name is Elbert, which I don't see here in the 1878 directory, but I do see an Edward Hubbard listed with the firm. Is that just a typo? Probably, since John here is listed as John Larkins instead of just Larkin. So we can probably say that the brother-in-law joined the previous year since he's listed here now. The 1880 census, we see 34-year-old John with his wife and their 4 kids, 2 girls, 2 boys. Albert is living with them too. This is before he gets married, I guess, because Albert is only 24 here. 1881 city directory, we see the name of the company still J.D. Larkin & Company, and the address is now 663 East Seneca. Now check this out. Look in the window. Now in development, Larkin Lofts. How cool is that? And check this out. Larkin Street. 1892, the first corporation was founded under the name the Larkin Soap Company. The following year, the brother-in-law retired from the company. Interesting fact about the brother-in-law, in 1915, Albert and his wife Alice were lost at sea after the sinking of the RMS Lusitania off the coast of Ireland. Apparently, he is remembered for an essay that he wrote called A Message to Garcia. I found a YouTube video where someone reads it out loud for you, and I also found a PDF, which I read while I was listening to the audio. As a small business owner myself, I found the piece very relevant. I linked both resources if you're interested. This 1920 says, from a very limited number of products and premiums in the mid-80s, the list has grown to about 700 products and 1,700 premiums. It says, from predominantly soap products to now including food products, and they now roast about 100,000 pounds of coffee each week. They now make the finest quality extracts and spices. And if that wasn't enough, they also have a textile department producing ready-to-wear garments, and they even manufacture pianos. 1897, here's an ad in the paper for Larkin soaps. In the list here, it mentions perfumes and tooth powder and cold creams. You can also get this desk. I found one online in an antique shop. Notice the name says Larkin Soap Manufacturing Company. I'm kind of keeping track of the changes in the name because this will help us date our bottles. Here's a similar ad in 1899 with an array of products and a different piece of furniture. 1900 census. This census says that the couple has had 5 children and all 5 survive. John Jr. is listed as 23 years old and working at the factory. 1901 article says, so great is the flow of visitors into the Larkin building that all who go there are necessarily obliged to enter at one door, and a uniformed guide moves the crowd through the various parts of the building to another door. If this method was not pursued, there would be a continual jam of people throughout the building. But with the Larkin system arrangements, the movement of the crowd is easy and pleasant. On one of these visits, a lady was visiting from Nebraska, and she was in one of these crowds at the building, and after her visit she realized she was pickpocketed. She had over $100 in her purse. In 1901, that's a heck of a lot of money. This article in 1901 is about a huge exposition that Larkin is part of, and goes into great detail about each department. And at one point it mentions that the humble beginnings of this company was this little 2,000 square foot building here. It has now grown to acres and acres. The article posted photos of inside the building. This one reads, hundreds of girls wrapping toilet soap at the factory. This one says, general offices at the Larkin Soap Company are very extensive. This one says, showing the interior view of the music room. This one's harder to see, but it's the mail room. And this is the photo printed in the paper. In 1902, there's an article stating that Larkin got permission to build tunnels for conveyance of materials under Larkin Street. I also want to point out that the name is now referred to as Larkin Soap Company. 2 years later, in 1904, they have been given permission to lay steam pipes under and across Carroll Street and Larkin Street. And in 1904, the newspaper article states that Larkin Company seems to have multiple locations, namely Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Illinois, and Massachusetts. 1905 census shows that one of the other sons is now old enough to work at the factory now. 1905, 6 big businessmen in Buffalo, one of them was Larkin, got together and toured some of the biggest plants in Buffalo. One of them was, of course, Larkin's place. The article takes the reader through different parts of the plant describing what's going on. It says, as you approach the plant, you smell perfumes and soap. It says they got in the elevator to the top floor where they were met with the smell of coffee being grinded. The coffee comes from Brazil and is handled through machines the entire time, so it's roasted and ground without a hand touching it from the time it leaves Brazil until it's in the customer's hand. They crank out 25,000 pounds a day. Then they headed to the boraxine department where men with picks and shovels are breaking up the boraxine where they put it into machines for grinding. They make 81,000 boxes a day. It says they went floor to floor, a new wonder on each floor. They went to the laundry soap floor where they witnessed immense cakes of laundry soap weighing 1,500 pounds. They are then cut into bars with piano wire. 4,200 cakes an hour. Hundreds of girls catch the soap and wrap them. Men put them into wooden boxes. The boxes get taken to a nailing room filled with men and boys where the boxes are nailed shut. A large steel magnet works in this room to pick up stray nails off the floor. 2 to 3 kegs of nails are picked up by this magnet daily. The boxes are then color-coded, and each color goes to a different location. The 4th floor is where the huge boiling kettles for the soap are. They span 4 floors, as you can see. It says the kettle holds 1.5 million pounds of soap. It takes 2 days to fill the kettle, 7 days to boil it, and 5 days to empty it. Next, they went to the perfume department. Then the office where 500 stenographer girls were at work. It says they were all wearing immaculate white waists and pretty smiling faces. By the time the tour was over, the gentlemen had walked over 7 miles around the plant. At the end of the tour, it points out an amusing event as the gentlemen were finishing up. One of the young ladies who worked there had given a gentleman a souvenir to take home to his wife. He said no thank you. She insisted that his wife would like it. He says, "I'm Mr. Larkin." Then she blushed. It was actually the first time she had ever met her employer. In 1910, John Larkin is now 64, and the census says that his wife had 7 children and only 5 survive. Only 1 child still lives at home, 18-year-old Ruth. Mr. Larkin bought a plot of land that was the old Indian burial ground with the intention to make it a protected national park. Protests were held by descendants of the Indians buried there. Chief Thunderwater was the spokesperson. He said that this was sacrilege. From what I read, the ceremony continued anyways, and here's Mr. and Mrs. Larkin unveiling a boulder that says Seneca Indian Park, and it still stands today. 1915, Larkin is throwing a picnic event, but what I wanted to point out is that the name is now called Larkin Soap and Product Company. 1920, 73-year-old Larkin is still working at the factory. 1920, another write-up in the paper. It says, "The story of the growth of the Larkin factories is one of the most interesting tales of industrial achievement, as well as a story of great human interest." It says, "The evolution of the company was the result of customer requests." There's debate on exactly who started it, but the credit goes to a woman in New York about 30 years ago who wrote the company saying that a group of friends would like to organize a club to buy Larkin soaps, foods, and other products. As of 1920, millions of these clubs have popped up. The idea became a factory-to-family company. It is now one of the largest mail-order and chain store businesses in the country at this time. It also says that for the production of its furniture, Larkin has its own lumber mill in Memphis, Tennessee. The wood is cut for chairs and tables and shipped to local factories. At this point, we're also selling floor coverings, kitchen utensils, jewelry, silverware and tableware, pottery, and cut glass. Goes on to say that the cleanliness throughout the plant is immaculate. The quality of materials is top-notch, and the departments all work in seamless cooperation. The Larkin Company employs 2,400 employees now. 1920 recaps the name changes of the company, so at the end of the video I will have a list for you of all the dates and the name changes. In 1922, Mrs. Larkin dies. In 1925, Larkin celebrates the 50th anniversary of the company. This photo shows John Larkin is in the center, sitting. His 3 sons, from left to right, is Harry, Charles, and John Jr. And the last guy over here on the right is John Jr.'s son, named James Crate Larkin. There was a big celebration in Buffalo, Chicago, and Illinois. There were even coins minted to commemorate the achievement. Online, you can actually get these for as little as $15, but they go up to as much as $200 for these coins. The following year, in 1926, John Larkin dies at the age of 80. It says he had a setback about a week ago with grippe, which is the flu. He had made an improvement which encouraged the family, but he took a turn for the worse 2 days ago, and he died yesterday morning. The mourning was felt all around town. He was a beloved member of the town. Employees mourned him, and a veteran employee says, "We have lost a dear, true friend." He was one of the most unassuming men I ever knew, and for a man of marvelous ability and wealth, he was the quietest and most likable. John Jr. had some beautiful words about his dad. Father was an exceptional personality. He had the most constructive mind. In fact, he was constantly looking for the constructive in everything. He insisted that everything he touched had to be developed to its best. This was true of the horses that he used to raise. Among his many ventures, he raised Clydesdales and high-class cattle. He shipped his stock to various parts of the country, exhibiting at shows, and was awarded prizes. He loved to be around the farm, just as he loved to play with children. He also liked skating. He was particularly proud of his orchards. When he dismissed his cattle, he went out more heavily into fruit. He turned a big barn into a cold storage plant for fruit. He has 24,000 apple trees in one orchard and 18,000 in another. John Jr. continued, "Father had wonderful qualities as a businessman, and as far as leadership, he had few equals. He had a way of inspiring those associated with him to supreme effort. I have seen him under tremendous stress, and he always kept remarkably calm. He never permitted himself to get excited, no matter the provocation. He gave an example of a night when an intruder tried to get into the house. The watchman and the intruder traded several shots at each other, while Larkin stood between the two. Afterwards, when asked if he was hurt, Larkin coolly said, 'No, I guess not. I believe I'm all right.' He displayed not the slightest excitement." It continues to give praises from various people, and it mentions that the plant has expanded every year since 1877, beginning with about 1 acre and now covering about 70 acres. It says 15 years ago, Larkin built the homes which occupy the block on Lincoln Parkway and Forest Avenue. There are 4 homes in particular called Larkland, which are bigger than the rest, and are occupied by Larkin and his children. In fact, it's mentioned that Larkin's home was at 107 Lincoln Parkway, which brings me here. So John Jr. succeeds his father as president of the firm. By year's end, John Jr. is in talks to build a Larkin building in Manhattan, which was going to be bigger than any skyscrapers up to this point, even taller than the Eiffel Tower. I had wondered if it made it to fruition, so I looked it up, and this was the idea for the tower. Apparently, structurally, it wasn't feasible to build such a tall building in such a small plot of land. The idea was canceled in 1930. It's now the site of the McGraw-Hill building. Moving on, here's an ad in the 1930 paper. There's various things, but there's a picture here that shows a coupon for Larkin shaving cream. In 1940, you can buy this Larkin washer and get a case of soap chips for free. A few months later, a fire destroyed some of the plant, caused a lot of damage. A month later, it says soap is being made again in the Larkin plant, but not by the Larkins. A soap manufacturer from Vienna had purchased the plant. He ran a successful business in Germany, but operations came under Nazi rule, so Mr. Stahl had left to England, and then he came to the United States. He learned about the Larkin plant being idle for over a year. That's the first I'm hearing about that. So he learned it was for sale, so apparently the Larkin family are officially done with this business. Interesting. 5 years later, 1945 notice of sale. So I'm not sure of the series of events in the past 5 years or what's really going on. Also, in 1945, John Jr. died. 1948, one of the 8-story buildings was sold to 2 local men to be used as a warehouse and light manufacturing. This building had been used during the war for storage of all kinds of Air Force property. In 1949, it says the city of Buffalo is the sole owner of the Larkin building. Currently, there's discussions of what is to be done with the building. Apparently, the building is in such disrepair that fallen bricks and plaster litter the ground. It's with heavy hearts that it's been agreed upon to raise the building, and Western Trading Company will erect a new building. It was demolished in 1950. So here's the before. 1951, people are still upset that the building was razed in such haste. Apparently, it ended up being turned into a parking lot. Some of the last pieces of the old building are in an upcoming auction. 1952, a fire happens in the 8-story building warehouse. In 1956, a new guy wants to come in and take over the last remaining segments of what was the Great Larkin Empire. Devon Incorporated is a new company that's up-and-coming perfumer and cosmetics manufacturer. I guess we'll see. In 1961, the warehouse building is going to be demolished soon. It had been in a few fires, and I guess it's not occupied. No word on how long Devon Company lasted, but apparently they're not there now. This 1961 story says old-timers will remember the famous Larkin cheese. Lucky customers would find a gold piece inside the cheese. How interesting. Into the 1970s, people seemed to regret that the Larkin building had been torn down, stating that there should have been more effort into restoring and maintaining it. This guy found some documents, and it looks like he's wanting to make a model of the old building. Here's another article with those same sentiments. Well, here's the location now. It's a parking lot. It really makes me sad to see such an empire turn into a parking lot. Well, at least one building survives, and it looks like it's going to be turned into apartments. Okay, so my Larkin bottle is a blown tool top. It says Larkin Soap Company, so I can easily date this one between 1900 and 1903. This example I found online is the same dates, and this example that I found online would be between 1903 and 1915. So that is going to do it for this one. I didn't think we were ever going to get finished with that one. There were so many newspaper articles to get through. This one might be my longest video ever. But we go until the story is done. I hope everyone has a wonderful day, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching.